Welcome back into another episode of the Spaceman 2.0 Phoenix Truth Rising Show. Here to help you grow in the knowledge and wisdom of truth, and the truth will set you free. So here we are, exposure of the Illuminati's plan of world conquest is the death knell to the New World Order. With that being said, we're going to get back into the Sumerian texts and what they say about how our celestial bodies were formed. And in the last episode, we were finishing off with one of the last celestial bodies to be formed was Pluto, with its previous name Gaga. And having said that, we all know that this music industry uses ancient god names and celestial names for their celebrities, for the stars that they get us to worship on stage. And they take on different personas, same like Rihanna and Beyonce. They take on spiritual personas to do their act. Maybe we getting into decoding them, they're reenacting their ancient mythologies associated with those names. With that being said, let's get back on into Through Darkness into Light, Endless Cycles of the Divine Plan, Volume 1. So continuing on, halfway down the second paragraph, it was also then that the chief satellite of Saturn, Gaga, the eventual Pluto, was pulled away in the direction of Mars and Venus, a direction possible only by the retrograde force of Nibiru Marduk, making a vast elliptical orbit. Gaga eventually returned to the outermost reaches of the solar system. There it addressed Neptune and Uranus as it passed their orbits on the swingback. It was the beginning of the process by which Gaga was to become your Pluto, with its inclined and peculiar orbit that sometimes takes it between Neptune and Uranus. Now I am bombarded with myriads of inquiries. I ask that you not expect me to reply, for we will write of these things as quickly as possible, and you waste time into jumping ahead to conclusions, which are most often erroneous. I would simply ask you to give me full definition, properly, not according to your dictionary, of what is a starship, what is a heavenly body, what in the dickens are we talking about? I suggest it will be increasingly interesting and fully backed up by data left as well be this data as we project it now, as will be this data as we project it now. The new destiny or orbital path of Nibiru Marduk was now irrevocably set toward the olden planet Tiamat. At that time, relatively early in the formation of the solar system, it was marked by instability, especially, you can see from the text and point, in the region of Tiamat. While other planets nearby were still wobbling in their orbits, Tiamat was pulled into many directions by the two giants beyond her and the two smaller planets between her and the sun. One result was the tearing off her or the gathering around her of a host of satellites, furious with rage, in the poetic language of the text, named by learned scholars as the Epic of Creation. These satellites, roaring monsters, were clothed with terror and crowned with halos, swirling furiously about and orbiting as though they were celestial gods, planets. Earth birth drama. Most dangerous to the stability or safety of the other planets was Tiamat's leader of the host, a large satellite that grew to almost planetary size and was about to attain its independent destiny, its own orbit around the sun. Tiamat cast a spell for him to sit among the celestial gods. She exalted him. It was called in Sumerian Kingu, great emissary. Now the text raised the curtain on the unfolding drama. As in Greek tragedy, the ensuing celestial battle was unavoidable as gravitational and magnetic forces came inexorably into play. Now, if you have forgotten the definition as given in the discussions of what is God and in the Pleiades connection of gravity, I suggest you go look it up before you pass on in this journal. But simply remember, gravity is the controller of light, and light is the one thing in all nature. This led to the collision between the oncoming Nibiru Marduk with its 7 satellites, winds in the ancient text, and Tiamat and its host of 11 satellites, headed by Kingu. Although they were headed on a collision course, Tiamat orbiting counterclockwise and Nibiru Marduk clockwise, the two planets did not collide, a fact of cardinal astronomical importance. It was the satellites, or winds, literal Sumerian meaning, those that are by the side of Nibiru Marduk, that smashed into Tiamat and collided with her satellites. In the first such encounter, the first phase of the celestial battle, as written. The four winds he stationed, that nothing of her could escape, the south wind, the north wind, the east wind, the west wind. Close to his side he held the net, the gift of his grandfather Anu, who brought forth the evil wind, the whirlwind, and the hurricane. He sent forth the winds which he had created, the seven of them, to trouble Tiamat. Within they rose up behind him. These winds are satellites of Nibiru Marduk. The seven of them were the principal weapons with which Tiamat was attacked in the first phase of the celestial battle. But the invading planet had other weapons too. In front of him he set the lightning. With a blazing flame he filled his body. He then made a net to enfold Tiamat therein. A fearsome halo, his head was turbaned. He was wrapped with awesome terror as with a cloak. As the two planets and their host of satellites came close enough for Nibiru Marduk to scan the inside of Tiamat and perceive the scheme of Kingu, Nibiru Marduk attacked Tiamat with his net magnetic field to enfold her, shooting at the old planet immense bolts of electricity, divine lightnings. Tiamat was filled with brilliance, slowing down, heating up, becoming distended. Wide gaps opened in its crust, perhaps emitting steam and volcanic matter. Into one widening fissure, Nibiru Marduk thrust one of its main satellites, the one called Evil Wind. It tore Tiamat's belly, cut through her inside, splitting her heart. Creation of the comets. Besides splitting up Tiamat and extinguishing her life, the first encounter sealed the fate of the moonlets orbiting her, all except the planet king, Kingu. Caught in the net, the magnetic and gravitational pull of Nibiru Marduk shattered, broken up the members of the band of Tiamat were thrown off their previous course and forced into new orbital paths in the opposite direction. Trembling with fear, they turned their backs about. Thus were the comets created. Thus you learn from a 6,000-year-old text, did the comets obtain their greatly elliptical and retrograde orbits? As to Kingu, Tiamat's principal satellite, the text informs you that in that first phase of the celestial collision, Kingu was just deprived of its almost independent orbit. Nibiru Marduk took away from him his destiny. Nibiru Marduk made Kingu into Dug-Gae, a mass of lifeless clay, devoid of atmosphere, waters, and radioactive matter, and shrunken in size, and with fetters bound him to remain in orbit around the battered Tiamat. Having vanquished Tiamat, Nibiru Marduk sailed on to his new destiny. The Sumerian text leaves no doubt that the erstwhile invader orbited the sun. He crossed the heavens and surveyed the regions, and Apsu's quarter he measured. The Lord the dimensions of the Apsu measured. Having circled the sun, Apsu, Nibiru Marduk continued in distant space, but now, caught forever in solar orbit, it had to turn back. On his return round, Ea, Neptune, was there to greet him, and Anshar, Saturn, hailed his victory. Then his new orbital path returned him to the scene of the celestial battle, turned back to Tiamat, whom he had bound. The Lord paused to view her lifeless body. To divide the monster he then artfully planned. Then, as a mussel, he split her into two parts. With this act, the creation of the heaven reached a magnificent stage, and the creation of earth and its moon was begun. First, the new impacts broke Tiamat into two halves. The upper part was struck by the Nibiru Marduk satellite called Northwind. The blow carried it, and with it Kingu, to places that have been unknown, to a brand new orbit where there had not been a planet before. The Earth and your moon were created. Asteroid belt form. The other half of Tiamat was smashed by the impacts into bits and pieces. This lower half or tail was hammered together to become a bracelet in the heavens. Locking the pieces together as watchmen, he stationed them. He bent Tiamat's tail to form the great band as a bracelet. Thus was the great band, the asteroid belt, created. Having disposed of Tiamat and Kingu, Nibiru Marduk once again crossed the heavens and surveyed the regions. This time his attention was focused on the dwelling of Ea, Neptune, giving that planet and its twin-like Uranus their final makeup. Nibiru Marduk also, according to the ancient text, provided Gaga, Pluto, with its final destiny, assigning it to a hidden place, a hitherto unknown part of the heavens. It was farther out than Neptune's location. It was, we are told, in the deep, far out in space. In line with its new position as the outermost planet, it was granted a new name, Usmi, he who shows the way. The first planet encountered coming into the solar system, that is, from the outer space toward the sun. That is, from outer space toward the sun. Thus was Pluto created and put into the orbit it now holds. Having thus constructed the stations for the planets, Nibiru Marduk made two abodes for itself. One was in the firmament, as the asteroid belt was also called in the ancient text. The other, far out in the deep, was called the Great Distant Abode, alias Shara, abode, home of the ruler prince. Modern astronomers call these two planetary positions the perigee, the orbital point nearest the sun, and the apogee, the farthest one. It is an orbit that takes some 3,600 Earth years to complete, as written earlier on A Couple of Days Past. The 12th planet. Thus did this invader that came from outer space become the 12th member of your solar system, a system made up of the sun in the center, with its longtime companion Mercury, the three olden pairs Venus and Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, the Earth and the Moon, the remains of the great Tiamat, though in a new position, the newly independent Pluto, and the planet that put it all into final shape, Nibiru Marduk. Modern astronomy and recent discoveries uphold and corroborate this millennia-old information, Chelas. I care not what you want to believe. Truth will stand the course of all time. The time is at hand for the revealing of this information, so that you can know of that which awaits. Much of what will happen is solely dependent upon that which you do as a species. For I am speaking of God, truth, and power within those things. Please take these things within your being, for in the truth lies the answers for your civilization and progression of your own beings. May you be given in understanding that which is lovingly handed on to you. When we take up this subject next, we will speak of this projection in the beginning, for it has great interest as spouted forth in the books. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. It is sad that both sides of the argument of creation pay almost no heed to what has been known for more than a century, even in your counting. The truth lies in the unabbreviated versions of much more detailed Mesopotamian texts of the Sumerians. Why does man always turn onto the liars and cheats, and only in the final failing does he come onto God? HATONN to clear, please. Chapter 9, recording number 1, HATONN, Friday, June 5th, 1992, 7:08 a.m., year 5, day 294. Friday, June 5th, 1992, meditation. Let us look at patience, that commodity of which most of you have but little. The key to everything is patience, so that each emotion, each thing be brought about in properness, fully formed and perfected in its presentation. The key to everything is patience. You get the chicken, dear ones, by hatching the egg, not by smashing it. Smash it, and not only is the chicken lost, but so is the egg. With money and funding for that which you seem to need and await, what have you, you often have a situation whereby the things are not ready for the receiving in protection, and the focus often causes the very project to be lost and the monies confiscated. You cannot go into the garden and simply demand through nag and prod to bear blossoms. You don't go and ask a gardenia to be a rose. You must allow them to do what is natural for them, to grow and flower at their own pace. Yes indeed, you can do things to speed the process, and if preparations are carefully done in advance, even a gardenia will cross with a rose, but in that instance, you no longer have a rose, nor a gardenia. Sometimes your best service is to simply stand by, be silent, be prepared, be ever expecting, be understanding, and wait. And can you not think upon beauty? Can you not think of the beauty that remains even though all seems to be misery? If you cannot look forward to beauty and positive restructuring, why bother to change the circumstance? Will you take a moment and see what beauty might be around you at this moment? And can you look through the fears and into that which holds no fear? Most of your fears are a tissue paper or fine cloth in which a single courageous step would carry you clear through them. If you are prepared, you can find the beauty and cast aside the fear, and oh, it will be a glorious day. But neither must you continue to say, I don't have enough time. You have exactly the same number of hours per day that were given to Jesus Emmanuel, Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Mother Teresa, Da Vinci, Jefferson, George Bush, Kissinger, and Perot. And so, if they can accomplish what they have, good or bad, what stops you? Ponder it. Can you not do push-ups if you have no time for a full workout? Above all, learn to listen. Opportunity sometimes knocks very softly, and the speaker is often only a tap on the shoulder. Listen in patience, lest the important point be missed through your talking instead of hearing the teacher, and the point in question be forever silenced. Lastly, God never gives up on anyone. What right have you to do so? Perhaps that only await your kindness and guidance. Perhaps they only await your kindness and guidance. Be blessed by the effort, not the turning away. If you include instead of exclude, then at some point you may have none on the outside to pull you down. Salut. Planet's beginning. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. Chelas, for generations upon generations, this majestic outline of the manner in which your world was created has been at the core of Judaism as well as of Christianity, and the third monotheistic religion, Islam, the latter two being outgrowths of the first. And in about the 17th century, an Archbishop, James Ussher of Armagh in Ireland, calculated from these opening verses of Genesis the precise day and the moment of the world's creation in the year 4004 BC. Today, many old editions of your Bible still carry Ussher's chronology printed in the margins. Many still believe that Earth and the solar system of which it is a part are indeed no older than that. Unfortunately, this concept has had to take on science as its adversary, and science, firmly tied to the theory of evolution, has met the challenge and joined the battle. Both sides err. It is most unfortunate that both sides pay little attention to what has been known for more than a century, that the creation tales of Genesis are edited and abbreviated versions of much more detailed Mesopotamian texts, which were in turn versions of an original Sumerian text, and thus rages the battle between religion and state, creationists and evolutionists. But does an argument ever produce truth? No, it simply causes entrenchment of those ideas already prevailing, right or wrong. Readers, this separation is not the norm among the earth's nations and peoples, nor was it the norm in antiquity when the biblical verses were put to print. Let us look at ancient times. The king was also the high priest. The state had a national religion and a national god. The temples were the seat of scientific knowledge, and the priests were the savants. This was so because when civilization began, the gods who were worshipped, the focus of the act of being religious, were none other than the Anunnaki Nephilim, who were the source of all manner of knowledge, alias science on earth. The merging of state, religion, and science was nowhere more complete than it was in Babylon. There, the original Sumerian epic of creation was translated and revised so that Marduk, the Babylonian national god, was assigned a celestial counterpart. By renaming Nibiru Marduk in the Babylonian versions of the creation story, the Babylonians usurped for Marduk the attributes of a supreme god of heaven and earth. Do you believe that such pronouncements could not be? Dear ones, this is Babylonia, which is now not present, but rested very near Baghdad in Iraq. Do you not feel Saddam Hussein and the Iraqi government capable of restating a few things? How about your own government? Do they always speak truth to you? Do they ever speak truth to you? This version, the most intact one found thus far, is known as Enuma Elish, when in the heights. Taken from its opening words, it became the most hallowed religious, political, scientific document of the land. It was read as a central part of the New Year rituals, and players reenacted the tale in passion plays to bring it in port home to the masses. The clay tablets on which they were written were prized possessions of temples and royal libraries in antiquity. The decipherment of the writing on the clay tablets discovered in the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia more than a century ago led to the realization that texts existed that related biblical creation tales millennia before the Old Testament was compiled. Especially important were texts found in the library of the Assyrian king Ashur-banipal in Nineveh, a city of biblical renown. They recorded a tale of creation that matches in some parts word for word the tale of Genesis. George Smith of the British Museum pieced together the broken tablets that held the creation text and published in 1876 the Chaldean Genesis. It conclusively established that there indeed existed an Akkadian text of the Genesis tale written in the Old Babylonian dialect that preceded the biblical text by at least 1,000 years. Excavations between 1902 and 1914 uncovered tablets with the Assyrian version of the creation epic, in which the name of Ashur, the Assyrian national god, was substituted for that of Babylonian Marduk. Subsequent discoveries established not only the extent of the copying and translation in antiquity of this epic text, but also its unmistakable Sumerian origin. So, may you ponder these words, and we'll continue on in the next episode with more about the stories of the Sumerian texts and how Iraq was the center of creation and civilization by the Anunnaki and the Nephilim 450,000 years ago. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll be back with another episode of the Phoenix Truth Rising Show. This is the Spaceman 2.0, and I'm out. Thank you again to all my subscribers. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Please share and scroll down below if you'd like a copy, and we'll get one out to you right away. Take care.